giving thanks, giving praises, asking for blessings from God, asking for the blessings of the ancestors and the elders, and getting it started. Man, we got a lot to cover as usual. What's today? It's Thursday, the last time I checked. And it is May Day, okay? International Workers of the World Day. Folks are rallying, turning up. Of course, we got workers on strike here in LA to the tune of 50,000 plus marching in these streets. It's a turned up May Day for sure. And this is what we do on a Thursday. Hour one, we look local. What's happening on the left coast side of town? Hour two, we go national, international, and beyond. In the third hour, we do a deep dive, hot topic, person of interest, and looking forward to sharing the microphone with you, of course. I invite you in every hour at 800-920-1580, 800-920-1580. International Workers of the World, weigh in on this mic. It is open to you. That's the beauty of KBLA, Black-owned media. We are not afraid. We are not afraid, and you are not alone. So you have a platform to speak out if you want to, and it is right here. I am also pleased to introduce our Hour One guest. He is a frequent contributor on this show, and I don't know if he's celebrating May Day or not, but he has a very special ministry where he feeds the unhoused and advocates for those who do not have a place to live at the moment. Every Friday, the Yes We Can ministry. He was called in the ministry at the age of 8, ordained at 17, and now he is feeding folks here in Los Angeles at the Yes We Can Worship Center every Friday night. Bishop Sherman Manning, welcome.
Good morning, good morning, good morning. How are you, Dominique?
I'm blessed and highly favored. How are you doing?
Amen. Well, I'm blessed, highly favored, and pushing forward, trying to call on the spirits of the ancestors, as you always say, in these troubled times that we're living in. I know that we always cover homelessness when I'm on, because that's what I do. That's what I'm passionate about. But I will tell you, with what's going on in the country, I know it's not the national hour, but with your president, I think that black people and all people must call on the ancestors and our better angels as we've never done so before.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like every hour is the national hour right now, Bishop, because everything that's happening in Washington is hitting us, right? I mean, already we're feeling it, right?
Yes. Yeah, and certainly, again, I definitely want to talk about homelessness in this city, but I will tell you, I read something 2 days ago, and I had to call a friend of mine in Atlanta. As you know, that's my hometown, and this guy was a principal. He was executive director of student services for the public school system, very bright guy, and we always talk politics, and I was startled by what I read, and it takes a lot to shake me. But when I read an article in which Donald is asking the defense secretary to look into ways that the United States military can be used to fight domestic crime in the United States of America, I was quite frankly appalled. I mean, if we knew nothing else about civics growing up, one of the things we knew was that the United States military was never used against American citizens.
Right, except when Trump wanted to cross the street last time he was president.
Yes, absolutely.
that time.
With
that
the Bible
happened.
upside down? Yes, I remember that.
Yeah. What is the symbolism of an upside-down Bible, Bishop Manning? That's a little above my pay grade right there.
And I think it was an awkward moment for him, but then when you couple that with the fact that when he was inaugurated, he refused to put his hand on the Bible, I think it speaks volumes.
Yeah. Okay. So what you're saying is he's the devil?
I'm not saying that.
Oh, I think I just said it. Whoops. Devilish. Devil adjacent.
Flip Wilson used to say the devil made me do it.
Yeah. Well. Yeah. So I think also, as we see them start to take artifacts out of the National Museum, the National Black History Museum, or the Blacksonian, as it's lovingly called, the intention becomes quite clear, erasing and undermining. Kamala Harris, of course, spoke yesterday about him and said, and about not just him, but because I think the whole Republican Party needs to take responsibility for what they're doing right now. I don't think we let them off the hook by just saying, oh, it's only Trump. No, they're all kowtowing and acquiescing. And to your point, Bishop, I think that this idea of using the military, the U.S. military, against its own citizens, the plan is to target black people. The plan is to target the homeless. I am not a conspiracy theorist, but I'm also not a coincidence theorist. When I hear him say we are going to send people to El Salvador, the worst of the worst, and on the campaign trail, he said you can tell which migrants are bad. And we know what he did with the exonerated 5 and formerly the Central Park 5. It is not a stretch nor a conspiracy to speculate that this is a plan. You know, we know how he's talked about Black Lives Matter, that this is a plan to utilize the military against us when we start protesting or continue protesting and get us out of this country.
And let us not forget that his former defense secretary, also a Republican, mind you, admitted on national television that when Black Lives Matter were protesting, I think it might have been in Minneapolis or somewhere, that Trump asked him, can we just shoot them in the leg?
Yes.
Can we have the United States military just shoot them in the leg, or so to speak? But, yeah, that was a grand scheme. And like you, and I don't just say it just to echo you, but it's something that I say quite frequently, I am not a conspiracy theorist. And I know that sometimes people embellish things in their minds, but dealing with this Pharaoh that we're dealing with now, Donald, there's no need for conspiracy theories. He's telling you exactly what he plans to do. And I remember reading years ago a book called The Browning of America. And I can't think of the guy's last name. You probably know him. He was a Republican. His first name was Pat something. And he wrote a book called The Browning of America. And basically he was talking about the fact that white people in the very near future would become the minority in this country. And then when you look at a guy like Elon Musk, who comes from an apartheid setting, it's like they want to reinstate apartheid.
I mean, it's the original apartheid setting. It was actual apartheid, yeah. Let's see. Okay. The Browning of America and the Evasion of Social Justice. Is that what you're talking about? Ronald Sundstrom? Or is
no,
that
not that one. No.
Okay.
I think this guy's name was Pat Donahue or something like that.
Okay.
Pat,
okay. Well, we'll figure it out. But yeah.
Yeah. But white people in this country, some of them, a segment of them, are afraid of becoming a minority. And when you bring in Elon Musk with the kind of mentality that he has, you know, it coincides with what Trump, the grand plan, the grand scheme, is. First it's the Mexicans, it's the brown people, it's those from those countries like Mexico, Guatemala, El Salvador, others. And then the next target will be black people. So if black people have ever prayed before, we better be praying. And if we have ever organized before, we better be organizing. If we've ever strategized before, we have to be strategizing, because Trump doesn't like black people, period.
You sound like Kanye West. You sound like Ye right now. Bishop Ye.
Oh, I remember that. Wasn't that so? The way he did it was so funny. He was just reading the script. He said, and we all know that George Bush doesn't like black people. That was back when Ye was a little bit, I won't get into that, but he was a little bit more stable, I would think, back then. But anyway, yeah, we're in the country. I remember years ago when George Bush was in office, and I was in Washington, D.C., and Jesse was speaking, and Jesse was saying, the country's in trouble tonight. And we are definitely in trouble at this moment. I'm not alarmed, but I'm awake, and I'm aware And I realized that this is the time for true men to stand up. This is the time for true prophets to stand up. We can't have any sellouts. We can't have, if you look at what's going on with Target and what's going on with these boycotts and different groups meeting with the CEO and not being as transparent about it as they perhaps should be. We've always had sellouts. We've always had house brothers, I'll use that term, but the authentic men and women of God will also come forward. And we've got a fight on our hands, but I am as convinced as I am that my name is Sherman D. Manning, that we will win this fight. And this is a call not just back to arms, but a call to God. And when I say arms, I don't mean violence. I don't mean violence at all. I mean the weapons of our warfare are not carnal. But we've got to be pragmatic. We've got to be smart. And we have got to be together. If we've ever been together before, it's time to get together.
Absolutely. We're talking with Bishop Sherman Manning, but we're also talking to you at 800-920-1580. That's how you tap in. Love to hear from you always. KBLA Talk 1580.
She's reclaiming her time on KBLA Talk 1580. More First Things First with Dominique DiPrima when we come forward. KBLA Talk 1580 and the California Black Chamber of Commerce invite you to the Small Business Development Workshop, How to Do Business with California Government, on Thursday, May 15th at Victory Park in Pasadena, 2575 Paloma Street. Get certified and register as a new bidder. Sell products and services to the state. Learn about pre-bid events and more. And it's all free. All you have to do is sign up at www.calbcc.org. That's www.calbcc.org. Registration for the Small Business Development Workshop, How to Do Business with California Government, begins at 9 a.m. and the workshop concludes at 1 p.m. on Thursday, May 15th at Victory Park in Pasadena, 2575 Paloma Street. This is a community call to action from the California Black Chamber of Commerce and KBLA Talk 1580.
Febreze. As a rideshare driver, I love keeping my car smelling fresh and clean. So when I'm driving, I only trust Febreze car vent clips, featuring 3 distinct intensity settings, because it's that little touch that sets me apart. I can turn the intensity down for subtle freshness, or I can turn it up for when I want lots of scent. So whether it's set to low, medium, or high, with Febreze car, I know my car's going to smell amazing. Which keeps my driver rating right where it belongs. Picking up Oscar!
We've got a lot to talk about.
I'm Reverend Gerald, the life coach. Is someone you love struggling with addiction and mental illness? Is improving your family's health important? Want to leave a legacy that your family can grow? Are you ready to enhance your perception of life experiences? Then wake up weekends at 7 a.m. with Urban Family Focus and get the wisdom, opportunity, resources, and motivation to live your best life. Join the conversation on Urban Family Focus Saturday and Sunday at 7 a.m.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black. Your ancestors' favorite radio station, and your favorite morning show host. Let's get back to Dominique DiPrima right now.
Pastor Sherman Manning, Bishop Sherman D. Manning, is with us. I wanted to ask you this, and as we segue into the issue of houselessness here in Southern California, which of course is looming large this week with the mayor's budget proposal on the table and the city council looking to tweak it. The public being encouraged to come out, show up, and weigh in. And of course, you can weigh in at thepeoplesbudget.com too. But Kamala Harris said, Vice President Kamala Harris, to give her honorific, said that the current administration is inviting a recession. That's the greatest man-made economic crisis in modern presidential history. The price of eggs hasn't gone down. All of these promises that this president and this Republican administration made about improving the lives of everyday Americans just has not turned out to be true. Are you seeing and feeling already the trickle down of this economic disaster in the making? And one of the reasons I ask is because I see it. I would characterize myself as middle class. And I see it with my friends who are middle and working class. People are already holding on to their money, worried about, how they can pay for things and stay afloat.
Absolutely, and that is, glad you brought that up. That is one of the other things that is just appalling about this presidency and the people that he has surrounded himself with. They're so out of touch with the common everyday person. As a public speaker, I have learned that you have to be a great listener if you want to be a halfway decent speaker. And so I listen very closely to the words that come out of people's mouths, even when I think it's simply rhetoric. This guy, Donald, just said on television a couple of days, yesterday, in fact, he was saying, quote unquote, so the children may not have 30 dolls, they may only have 2 dolls, and then the next thing is key. He said, and those dolls may cost a couple of bucks more each. My point is, he has been rich for so long, even though he's not as rich as he claims to be. He's so out of touch, Dominique. He doesn't understand that many people in this country have more week than they have paycheck. He doesn't understand that that there are people. So the answer to your question is yes. I see people in my church. I see people in my ministry, in my work, who were barely surviving before. And now that it's an extra $1 here and $2 there, and as you said, eggs have not gone down, bacon hasn't gone down, gasoline is not $2 a gallon as he said it would be on day one. And by the way, he didn't solve the war between Russia and Ukraine on day one either. So, he lies pathologically, and he wants to make you believe that up is down and down is up. And that is goes into another subject. That's why education is so important, because a lot of the people, and Lord forgive me, because I love everybody, and I have white people in my church, Hispanics and all. I love all of God's children. But there is a segment of uneducated white people that he plays to in this country. A friend of mine took a trip the other day to some little country area of California, and Mississippi, I'm sorry. And he was telling me that every house had a Trump sign in the driveway, and a lot of these were trailer parks with trailers that were barely standing, that if it rained, it looked like they would fall down, but they were Trump lovers because he has convinced them that he stands for them, although they're the ones being hurt. It's like Dr. King in the 60s. He said to some of the racist white people outside the jail, he said, y'all in the same shape that we're in. You can't send your kids to school. We can't send our kids to school. You don't have any money. We don't have any money. So some kind of way, if we could tap in to get those white people down in these rural areas to understand that he is not good for their bottom line, I think we could get something done here.
Yeah, well, the approval ratings are pretty dismal at the moment, so maybe some folks
and that's
are.
going to go into, and Dominique, if I may, that's going to go into another subject that I hope we can at least tap before we move to homelessness, and that is, I have learned that that people always want to be better than someone else. And I learned that lesson well. Please let me tell you the story when we get a chance. I learned that lesson well through Eric and Lyle Menendez when I was in prison with both of the guys. You know that I was in prison. I spent 7 years in prison working with Eric Menendez every day of my life, unfortunately. And then when I left that prison, I went to the prison where his brother Lyle was located at that time, which was Mule Creek State Prison. But I learned a lesson, and that is that no matter what the circumstances, there's always a group of people who want to feel that they're better than the other group. And that's a phenomenon that we're dealing with some of these white brothers and sisters in the trailers who are broker than most of us are, but still hanging on to Donald Trump.
Yeah. Meanwhile, we're in the middle of a pretty substantial budget crisis here in Los Angeles, which is going to affect every income level. I think you're right. We get played against each other. Clearly, that's happening in the aftermath of the fires, where our mayor is being blamed for everything, even things she does not have any jurisdiction over, like Malibu and Altadena, where she is not the mayor. Meanwhile, others do somehow escape accountability, although I understand that Supervisor Barger will be on with James Farr this week on Saturday, so that should be interesting. However, I feel like, the landscape that we're in this budget crisis is making a lot of people just straight up lie. How is it? You sent me an article, and we'll drill down a little deeper into this. But how is it that our police chief feels like he should get more and more and more and more money for that department when people are literally living on the streets? Of course, I'm referring to Chief Jim McDonnell, who is our relatively new police chief, who says it's time to overhaul the department within 90 days. No, it's not. It's time to take stock of the fact that you already spent up a huge portion of in the past, year, over $100 million in settlements for police abuse, and try to tighten your belt like everybody else is doing. Meanwhile, there is literally tens of thousands of union workers on the streets, 50,000+ union workers on the streets, protesting at the same time that the mayor is asking for concessions from the unions. Happy May Day. And those unions are saying, look, unless the LAPD makes concessions, we are not doing it. It has to be across the board. Where do we go from here, and where does that leave the unhoused? 800-920-1580 if you want to weigh in. Pastor Sherman Manning is with us. I'm Dominique DiPrima, and this is KBLA Talk 1580.
More of First Things First with Dominique DiPrima when we come forward.
I'm Bree Wood with BIN News Now. The Supreme Court is deciding if Oklahoma's first taxpayer-funded religious charter school can proceed. Oklahoma Attorney General Gentner Drummond says Oklahomans don't want to fund religious schools.
If we fund one, then we have to fund all, and it's just a slippery slope.
Justice Barrett has recused herself, possibly leading to a split decision that would uphold the Oklahoma Supreme Court's block on the proposal. Ukraine and the U.S. signed a minerals agreement granting U.S. access to Ukraine's rare earth minerals. The deal addresses $175 billion in U.S. aid and signals commitment to a peace process focused on a free Ukraine. And the NFL fined the Atlanta Falcons $250,000 and defensive coordinator Jeff Ulbrich $100,000 for a prank phone call made to Shedeur Sanders during the draft. Ulbrich's son admitted to making the call using his father's iPad. Sanders was selected by the Cleveland Browns in the 5th round. Get BIN News Now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
Got issues with youth or high school sports? Positive Coaching Alliance can help. PCA, a national nonprofit, offers more than 1,000 free online resources for youth and high school sports coaches, parents, students, and administrators. Visit PCADevZone.org.
Is this the tackle? This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The first thing Lakers Nation will be monitoring tonight in Game 5 against Minnesota is how Coach J.J. Redick will use his bench. Redick took a lot of heat for not making any substitutions in the second half in the Lakers Game 4 loss on Sunday. Down 3-1 in the best of 7, it's a must-win situation for the Lakers tonight at Crypto.com. Redick cannot afford to have tired players in the fourth quarter if the game is close. 7 p.m. tip-off on TNT. The NFL gave the Atlanta Falcons a $250,000 fine and a $100,000 fine to Falcons defensive coordinator Jeff Ulbrich in response to the prank phone call to Shedeur Sanders during the NFL draft. On day 2 of the draft, Ulbrich's son Jax got Sanders' phone number off his father's iPad. Jax called Sanders pretending he was New Orleans Saints general manager Mickey Loomis, telling Sanders the Saints were going to draft him. Sanders was not drafted until day 3 by Cleveland in the 5th round. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
At the tone, please record your message.
You ready?
Drop it!
Mr. Tavis Smiley, preach it. Thank you, man. Politics in this country is crazy. You put things in perspective that even I didn't. The right is playing fast and loose with facts and scapegoating everyone under the sun, especially black and brown people. As a white man, I do not agree with this, and I am on my black and brown brothers and sisters' side. Fight the good fight. Know that I am part of the resistance. Let's fight the power.
Our freedom of speech is freedom of death. We got to fight the powers that be.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black.
All I need is one mic.
With a KBLA Talk 1580 editorial, I'm Tavis Smiley. With so many shows on our station weekdays and weekends, it's hard for me to keep track of all the guests who are actually in studio on any given day. I wish I'd known in advance that LADA Nathan Hochman was coming in studio for a recent interview. Had I known, I would have loved to have personally greeted him and then asked him why LA City Council member Karen Price is being criminally prosecuted for allegations of misconduct similar to the conflict of interest violations for which former City Council member Kevin De Leon is only being fined. What's that about, Mr. DA? In fairness to Mr. Hochman, it was former DA George Gascon who actually filed felony charges against Councilman Price. I opined then on how these criminal charges against Price did not pass the smell test. I was concerned then that this was yet another wayward prosecution of a high-profile black elected, not to mention a waste of taxpayer money. I am even more convinced now that this is a hot mess. To be clear, neither you or I want a bunch of self-serving, greedy, conflict of interest criminals managing the people's business inside LA City Hall. But we also don't want selective or targeted prosecution of black politicians. We've seen that movie before, and we don't need a sequel. It's hard to watch Kevin De Leon get away with paying an $18,000 fine for repeated ethics violations, what he calls an oversight, and at the same time, watch the DA's office continue its criminal prosecution of Karen Price for issues allegedly involving his wife's clients. Motions, I might add, that were passed unanimously by the LA City Councilman. What are you saying, Tavis? I'm glad you asked. DA Hochman did not start this inquisition, but he certainly has the power to stop it. I have said it before, and I will say it again. Fundamental fairness. In the absence of fundamental fairness, we experience a cascade of deteriorating conditions. The erosion of trust, the weakening of social cohesion, alienation, marginalization, the legitimacy of authority diminishes, cynicism and disengagement grow, and ultimately, people abandon civic participation altogether. Fundamental fairness, Mr. Hochman, that's all we ask. With a KBLA Talk 1580 editorial, I'm Tavis Smiley. As always, we welcome your feedback.
Thanks for waking up with Dominique DiPrima on KBLA Talk 1580.
I do appreciate you so very much joining me. You can join me also on YouTube at KBLA 1580, where we stream every single day, rain or shine. Bishop Sherman Manning is here in studio. Time flies when you're on the radio. So you're talking about the houseless crisis in a period of time where we're also having a major budget crunch. Right. And at a time when the mayor is under fire because of things that, she didn't control, i.e. the fire. And also I want to say when there's a dismantling of or a defunding of the city county housing agency, where the county has taken their money out, but they still have say-so over the agency. City council talking about taking the city's money out. Let's start there. What do you make of that, the breakdown or the...
Well, you recall I sent you an article a few days ago, and one of the few times you actually respond to an email, you said it's a very biased article, and you remember that article. So, I have never been that impressed with LASA in the first place, and that's because I know the inner workings of LASA. The young lady who just resigned, I knew her, and she's a great person, and I didn't like the way all of that went down. It's just funny how the media can get things so wrong. They were basically saying that she was voting to authorize her husband's company to receive a contract, so forth and so on, but it turns out her husband's company had a contract with LASA way before she became the chief of LASA. So it wasn't nepotism whatsoever. It was already going on.
And plus, she tried to avoid signing that.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's the old throw the black woman under the bus trick. Felicia Adams Kellum
Yes.
is who we're talking about.
Which is what is going on as we deal with houselessness, as you call it, which is what's going on with Mayor Karen Bass. I don't mind criticizing any politician when I disagree with them. As I've told you before, I think that Mayor Karen Bass has taken homelessness more seriously than any mayor we've had in modern history. And as we know, she inherited a mess. All of the stuff that we're dealing with now are the after effects of years and years of mismanagement, and that didn't have anything to do with her. But she is black, and she is a woman, and so we want to blame the fires and everything else on. When I thought about them blaming the fires on her, I thought about when Obama was president, and you remember we had an oil leak somewhere in an ocean, and I remember it was 7 or 8 days to get that oil leak. And one of my friends said, the only way they're going to be happy is if Obama puts on a dive suit, runs down there in the ocean and plugs the hole up himself, because he was the black president. And so a lot of that is going on with her now. And I'm very upset by Rick Caruso, who's sitting on the sidelines. I said when she won that if he really loved the city as much as he said he does, he should volunteer and come in and help tackle the homelessness problem. He hasn't done a thing except lip service and sat on the sideline to wait until he sees problems with the city, come in and attack Bass because he probably wants to run again. But so I'm critical of Lassa. I agree with you. The article was biased. I don't agree with everything I read. I think you have the right side, the wrong side, and then the truth is somewhere in the middle most times. But
two things. In my defense, I get about 500 to 700 emails a day.
That's all?
Yeah. And about half of those are from you.
Okay.
But the article, the reason there's a lot of problems with it, but it's what it's saying is that they're lying about the houseless count, that they're misleading the public on houselessness. Well, number one, they're saying that the counts are inaccurate, as if that was new. So you didn't have a problem with the count being inaccurate with every other mayor. The count's always been accurate. It's not easy.
Right.
Or anybody, all the way probably back to Reardon. I mean, Tom Bradley. It's an accurate homeless count is not something we've mastered.
I'll put that on the side.
Yeah, these folks really want to get a hold of him. He's on the radio right now.
Amen. Right, you were talking about the count, yes.
Yeah, so that's one bias piece. Now suddenly you're criticizing the count, which has never been accurate. Number two, they're saying that we've spent all this money, billions on unhoused programs, and we have nothing to show for it. While you've been very critical, and I agree with you that the oversight is trash, and that the execution has not been great, nothing to show for it is just a lie.
Right.
If we hadn't had Measure HH and HHH, if we hadn't had the investment that we have made as a city in homelessness, it would be way worse. It would be looking like Bangladesh out here right now.
Right. Yeah, nothing to show for it is a blatant lie. I agree with you wholeheartedly there. I have not seen the improvement that I'd like to see, that I want to see, that I plan to see, but I will tell you that things have not gotten worse under Mayor Bass's administration. And I think you know me well enough to know that if I thought they had, I would say so. I'd have to call Karen and say, I'm sorry, but I got to tell the truth. But they have not gotten worse. And in some areas, they've gotten better.
So what should they be doing? And I'm putting this not just on Bass, but also the county. County. I mean, a lot of, L.A. County and city are really enmeshed.
Right. Well, one of the things I did when I first started tackling homelessness was I took a tour around California. So I went to Stockton, I went to Sacramento, I went to San Francisco. I wanted to see what was going on in their homeless crisis, etc. And I said all that to say, I believe that one of the main problems we have in Los Angeles is what you were just talking about, which is you have the county, you have all of these different organizations that are responsible for different parts, and half the time we don't know who's who or what's what. And they're not working together. I mean, we had a lot of cooks in the kitchen. And I don't know whether you know about having too many cooks in the kitchen. It just can be problematic. So if we had one umbrella organization that actually dealt with this problem, which is what LASA was supposed to be, but it turned into a political organization, and it turned into a money-making organization, if you will, and that had nothing to do with either the mayor or the supervisors. It had something to do with the way LASA was being run before the young lady took over. His name was Peter something. I can't think of it at the moment. I'm still waking up. But what we should be doing is working together. What we should be doing is lighting a candle rather than cursing the darkness. What we should be doing is stop trying to point fingers at bad supervisors. Anyone, roll your sleeves up, get involved, and ask, how can I help? That's what we should be doing. The only way we're ever going to tackle this, ameliorate the homeless problem in Los Angeles, is when we have government. Now, I remember I did a homeless party at McCoy 3 or 4 years ago when Herb Wesson was still president of the city council, and we brought in 400 homeless people from Skid Row and around the city, and we threw a party for them. We had housing services there for them. We had food, clothing, shower trucks, and everything. And although Mr. Wesson was a politician, he was a good politician, he said something that was key. On his way out, he was saying, this just proved that government alone can't do this. It's going to take churches, the civic community, and the government working hand in hand to get this done. And I've said it enough that I sound like a broken record, but until we actually do that, until we realize that the city can't do this alone, until some of these businesses who want these homeless people out of their area decide that they're willing to put their money where their mouth is and help fight the problem and not just try to shame people for their situations and their positions, until that happens, we're going to continue to deal with what we're dealing with every day now.
That seems right, but it's also sort of big picture. Mm-hmm. And I'm looking for more nuts and bolts, right? Mm-hmm. We're in a budget season, and there's been quite a lot of critique about the mayor's Inside Safe program. Mm-hmm. But it appears, looking at the budget, that is not set to be cut. Do you think it should be? Do you think that L.A. should back out of LASA altogether? The city. I'm not talking about the county, because the county's already defunded it. Mm-hmm.
That's a tough question. And since I'm not in the mayor's position and I'm not privy to all the information she's privy to, I just couldn't answer that. Inside Safe, I don't think it should be cut. I told you when I was here before, it was too expensive. I talked about how much it costs to put a person in a hotel per month versus what it costs to put them in regular affordable housing per month. But the wrong answer is to do nothing. I mean, her Inside Safe program has helped a lot of people, has benefited a lot of people. I know some personally who have benefited, women who have been sexually assaulted on the streets in tents, and now they're safe. So I don't think it should be cut. We've got to find some other areas around the margins where we can cut. And we know that, if you cut in the fire department and there are major fires, then they're going to blame you for that. If you cut in the police department and crime goes up, they're going to blame you for that. So you're darned if you do, you're darned if you don't.
But yet crime is down, and the mayor already gave the police rank and file historic raises. Mm-hmm. Their budget is at an all-time high. Mm-hmm. And the fact that she's cut proposed cutting 409 jobs in the civilian side of the LAPD. Now they're saying that may lead to fewer patrol officers on the street. Well, if y'all could stop brutalizing people, that would save $100 million or more every year right there. So, practically, you can say, damned if you do, damned if you don't, but the LAPD still takes up the lion's share of the city budget during a time when crime is down.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's most major cities. Look at New York, look at Chicago, even look at my hometown of Atlanta. And again, I have some bias here when it comes to policing. I've spent most of my adult life protesting against police, and I know the way they brutalize black people, and I talk about it every day of my life. However, with this particular chief, Jim McDonald, happens to be a personal friend of mine. I texted him yesterday regarding something that I saw in another city, sent him the video because I wanted his opinion on it, and he gave it to me. I won't repeat it, but he gave it to me. But he is a good man, and he means well. And his department has a lot of work to do, and I agree with you. The LAPD, I think cuts should be made there. I mean, I definitely believe that. But here again, Dominique, when and if you're right, she's giving them historical raises. She's trying to recruit more police officers because
as every single mayor has ever
Yes.
since we've had mayors in LA.
Right. But we have a shortage. And the flip side of it is when you're being robbed and
That's
you
a
call
perspective that we have a shortage.
when you have an emergency and you call the police and it takes them 20 minutes to get there, how do you explain that? And it has happened to me.
How do I?
At our church.
There's lots of ways to explain it. What neighborhood is your church in?
It's in South Central.
So if you would move it to Bel Air, they'd get there right away. I guarantee you. Pastor Sherman Manning, 800-920-1580 if you want to weigh in. We're going to continue this conversation with Bishop Manning when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA Talk 1580 is an intervention. When we come forward, includes you. KBLA Talk 1580, turning pain into power.
Looking for a purposeful and passionate way to make a difference in your community? Volunteer with our Senior Medicare Patrol and help prevent Medicare fraud. S&P volunteers work in their community educating peers about healthcare fraud and how to prevent and detect it. Free training starts soon. Check us out online or at an S&P open house near you. We're on a mission to stop fraud. Join our team. You make a difference. Visit caspvolunteer.org. Protect yourself from Medicare card scams. Scammers may call, email, or even knock on your door claiming they need your Medicare info, asking for money or threatening to cancel your benefits. Don't fall for it. It's a scam. Remember, Medicare doesn't need to verify your information. They already have it. Medicare won't charge you for a new card and will never threaten to cancel benefits. Check your Medicare statements for suspicious charges and report scams to the California Senior Medicare Patrol at 1-855-613-7080. We're here to help.
Attorney advertising. Prior results do not guarantee future outcomes.
Founded in Los Angeles in 1986, litigation powerhouse Quinn Emanuel has deep roots in the Los Angeles community. Since 2007, we have litigated some of the largest fires on the West Coast. We are proud to be the only AmLaw 100 firm in the country to represent wildfire victims, giving affected individuals, families, and businesses the same focus and individualized attention we devote to our Fortune 500 clients. BTI Consulting has repeatedly recognized Quinn Emanuel as among the 4 law firms in-house counsel least like to oppose in any litigation, and we are often deemed the most feared. And after securing over $80 billion for our clients in various matters firm-wide, we understand why. If you have been affected by the recent wildfires in Altadena and the Palisades and would like to discuss your situation further, please contact wildfire support at QuinnEmanuel.com or call us at 213-443-3050. Quinn Emanuel is proud to sponsor Conversation Live Altadena Rising with James Farr on KBLA Talk 1580.
Attorney advertising. Prior results do not guarantee future outcomes.
The Comedy Connection series featuring KBLA's Zoe Williams, the voice of reason, and the alpha male of comedy, Ray Grady. We're going to transform relationship disasters into stand-up material live at Inglewood's Miracle Theater on May 31st at 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. My clinical team will disclose all of your dating woes, while the alpha male of comedy, Ray Grady, has hand-selected supremely talented comedians to roast all of our tragic relationship choices. I dare you to bring your ex's phone number because Ray, he's going to text it live and the crowd will be sourcing emojis. Tickets are moving swiftly, so don't hesitate to grab yours at themiracleinglewood.com before I diagnose your dating history as a pre-existing condition.
We knew you'd stick around. This is LA's home for progressive talk radio. Be heard. Welcome back to KBLA Talk 1580.
To be honest with you, Bishop Sherman Manning, we can find you at the church every Friday night. But to be honest with you, the balance is holding electeds accountable. Mm-hmm. Clearly, I think Mayor Bass is under attack. I think she's doing a much better job than she gets credit for, but we're in budget season. Mm-hmm. And so that means we got to look at the hard facts. What is money being spent on?
Right.
And where can we make improvements? And I know people that work in the unhoused or homeless space that urged a vote against Measure A because they don't trust our electeds or these nonprofits to responsibly spend the money. Mm-hmm. Right? But if we defund the help for the homeless, it's going to get worse. So we're between a rock and a hard place. What do you recommend? Did you vote yes on A? Did you vote for more funding for homeless?
I have to. I mean, I feel like it would be malpractice for me not to do so.
But yet you're one of the critics who says
Absolutely.
LASA and others are spending the money
Absolutely.
wrong. So are we voting against our own best interests? And how do we get a handle on this? It's not just the city. The state oversight, we've talked about this, is lackadaisical at best.
Right. But I just don't want to be an armchair revolutionary. And I know that the answer is not cutting funding for houselessness. The answer is responsibly spending the funding that we get. And I've told you 1,000 times, we need a czar to manage the money, because when you start talking billions, listen, the part of the article that I agree with is when you spend $24 billion at a problem and then you walk down Skid Row and you see all of these homeless brothers and sisters, it's easy to think that nothing has changed, that nothing has gotten better, but they don't know the nuts and bolts of homelessness, and they can't see the progress on the level that we're able to see it on, because when you work in it, it's like you have a giraffe's view. When you're just coming through, it's like you have turtle vision. You can only see what's going on around you. But mentioning houselessness, I have to throw this in. I told you I met with we have a new group called JABA, Jews and Blacks Association. Rabbi Konevsky is our associate president. So we're having a fundraiser on May 18th, and that is going to be in Hollywood Hills for the Tiny Homes Project. And anyone listening hopefully can go to the tinyhomesproject.com. That's the Tiny Homes, HOMES, project.com, all one word. And on the 18th of May at 3 o'clock p.m. in Hollywood Hills, we're having a fundraiser for our tiny homes. It's invitation only, so if anyone is interested, if you don't mind me giving the number, 213
Not at all, yeah.
858-2608. That's
Say it one more time.
213-858-2608. If you're interested in coming to the fundraiser, do me a favor, don't call. Only text. I get 700 phone calls a day. I get the phone calls that you get in emails. But we're raising our own money. As I told you, I don't take money from the state. I don't take money from the government. I don't believe in that. And with Trump in office, I really don't believe in it now, because they can try anything. They can lock you up on federal crimes and say that you did this, that, and the other. But it's going to take the community. But back to your main question, and you always challenge me with that when I come. You never go easy on me. You ask me these complex questions.
Oh, that is me going easy, Bishop Manning.
You ask me these
You haven't seen Tough Dominique yet.
But we're going to have someone whose sole job, it's like bean counters, as they like to call them. And I don't mean to be derogatory. They need to count.
What's wrong with counting beans?
The money. They need to count.
Well, so if we had a homeless czar, assuming that we could get the city and the county to agree to have one person,
right,
and then we'd need a state person.
Mm-hmm.
Then you'd need accountants to monitor the accountants. Mm-hmm. So you've got to have layers on top of layers.
But you would still save money, because what happens is when you give $1 billion to a fool, he doesn't know what he's doing with it. And I'm not calling anyone in city government or anyone in LASA fools. That is not what I'm saying. But I'm saying when lots of people don't, my friend John Hope Bryan talks about financial literacy. I literally know organizations. Let me get a little bit more personal. I know some nonprofits in this city who have gotten millions of dollars from LASA, and these organizations are being run by people who have high school diplomas. When you have a high school diploma, you cannot manage $40 million. You just can't. You need accountants. You need oversight. You need someone. I remember my dad took me to the projects in Atlanta many years ago, and he said, if I gave every poor person here $1 million right now, he said, how many of you think would have money at the end of the year? I said, all of them. And he said, none of them. And he explained to me why. He talked about financial literacy, how most people don't know that $1 million is not $1 million, that once the tax man gets through with you and some other things that happen, it's not $1 million. Mike Tyson proved to us that if you put $400 million in the hands of a person who's not bright in that area, what's going to happen? It happens every day. So the same phenomena we see with athletes who lose all their money, that's what we're seeing with city government and state government who are taking this money, often well-intentioned but wrong-headed, and don't know what they're doing.
But just to be clear, you weren't talking about Dr. Valicia Adams-Kellum, who has
Absolutely
a BA
not.
from USC and an MA from Ball State University.
No. She's highly educated.
Yeah.
And did a great job and should still be there now.
Yeah.
As I've said.
I just wanted to clarify for those who
right.
might not be following the bouncing
that
ball.
she is very educated.
I mean, that's not who you were talking about specifically.
Of course not. No.
Okay, so tinyhomesproject.com. Time flies when you're on the radio. You are building tiny homes, and you want help.
Yes,
because
and
you're
this
not
is
getting government money.
And this is transformational housing, as I've told you. In order to be in these tiny homes, you're in class every day. We're teaching you. We're pumping you up with the good, the clean, the pure, the powerful, and the positive. Because I've done this for more than 8 years now, and I've learned that I can't count the people that I've housed. By the grace of God, He's used me to house, and 6 months later, they're homeless again. Something in the head, something in the heart has to change, and we've got to help. And they're different, as you and I always talk about, different classes of homeless people. When I say class, what I mean, some people are there from drug addiction. Some are there from alcoholism. There are a few there who are just there from laziness. But there are many who work 8 to 10 hours a day and sleep in tents. Those are the people that Trump is hurting even worse now. People who are trying to save up enough money to get a security deposit, to get an apartment. I deal with people like that every day of the week. They are being crushed by this economy. And when the tariffs really kick in a few more months, some of them don't know what they're going to do. And I know people who have houses who might end up homeless themselves, because many of us are one paycheck away from homelessness ourselves.
Okay, well, it's time for us to wrap the hour, because I was going to ask you to pray for everybody and try to help us stay positive in these tough times, because we have to do that, right?
Okay, well, I'll pray off the air if you don't have time. I will.
We always have time for prayer.
Okay.
Bishop Sherman Manning, thank you for all the work that you're doing.
Thank you.
It's so very important.
Thank you for having me. I hope you have me back one day.
Of course. KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Bree Wood with BIN News Now. The Supreme Court is deciding if Oklahoma's first taxpayer-funded religious charter school can proceed. Oklahoma Attorney General Gentner Drummond says Oklahomans don't want to fund religious schools.
If we fund one, then we have to fund all, and it's just a slippery slope.
Justice Barrett has recused herself, possibly leading to a split decision that would uphold the Oklahoma Supreme Court's block on the proposal. Ukraine and the U.S. signed a minerals agreement granting U.S. access to Ukraine's rare earth minerals. The deal addresses $175 billion in U.S. aid and signals commitment to a peace process focused on a free Ukraine. And the NFL fined the Atlanta Falcons $250,000 and defensive coordinator Jeff Ulbrich $100,000 for a prank phone call made to Shedeur Sanders during the draft. Ulbrich's son admitted to making the call using his father's iPad. Sanders was selected by the Cleveland Browns in the 5th round. Get BIN News Now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
Got issues with youth or high school sports? Positive Coaching Alliance can help. PCA, a national nonprofit, offers more than 1,000 free online resources for youth and high school sports coaches, parents, students, and administrators. Visit PCADevZone.org.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
For the second year in a row, the Lakers were eliminated in the first round of the NBA playoffs. And for the second year in a row, LeBron James said he has a lot to think about regarding next season. Minnesota's 103-96 win at Crypto.com Wednesday night finished off the Lakers in 5 games. After the loss, LeBron was asked about next season. He said he doesn't have an answer to that question. LeBron said he needs to have a conversation with himself and his family. I'm going to put it out here right now. There's a very real possibility that we may have seen LeBron James play his last game. He's 40 years old. In 22 NBA seasons, he has accomplished everything any player could ever dream of. He has nothing more to prove and nothing to shoot for other than an NBA championship. And the way the Lakers roster is constructed, LeBron knows as well as anybody, a Lakers title could be several years away. Stay tuned. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
When the flames subside, who ensures that the stories endure? At KBLA Talk 1580, we're committed to preserving the voices that shape our community. Let Altadena be forgotten. We are honored to announce that the Altadena Historical Society will